There's a specific cart you start noticing after enough trips to Dollar Tree. The same handful of items showing up again and again in the hands of older shoppers, week after week, like clockwork. I finally asked a cashier, who's rung up hundreds of these carts, why the same 9 products kept coming through her line, and her answer explained everything. She didn't need to think long before rattling off her list either, which told me these weren't guesses. They were patterns she'd genuinely watched play out at the register for years. What made her answers stand out was how specific each one was, not vague categories like kitchen tools or reading aids, but exact products she could picture in the hands of the actual customers who buy them week after week. That level of detail is exactly why this list feels different from the usual roundup. Every single pick came from a genuine, remembered moment, rather than a generic guess about what might be useful. Today we're going through all 9, what they are, and exactly why she says older shoppers keep coming back for them specifically. If this kind of first-hand insight is useful to you, go ahead and hit that like button, and let's get into it. Number 1. The extra-large playing cards. These jumbo print playing cards, at $1.25, have bold, easy-to-read numbers and suits that make them simple to use during a regular card game without squinting or holding the cards at arm's length. The cashier mentioned that a surprising number of regulars buy a fresh deck every few months, treating them almost like a household staple rather than an occasional purchase. Card games remain one of the most popular ways older adults stay socially connected, and a deck that's actually comfortable to read removes a small but real barrier to joining in. She's also noticed the same customers picking up 2 decks at once, one for home and one to keep in a bag for visiting friends or family, treating the low price as an easy way to always have a fresh set on hand. She's also noticed the thicker card stock holds up far better through repeated shuffling than the thinner decks at other stores, lasting through months of regular game nights without the corners fraying. For anyone hosting a weekly card group, she said, a couple of fresh decks kept on hand is a small, low-cost way to keep the tradition going without ever worrying about a worn-out set interrupting the game. It's a small tradition worth protecting, she noted. And a fresh deck at this price makes it genuinely easy to keep that tradition going without a second thought. She also mentioned the print size on this specific deck has stayed a favorite even among customers who've tried other jumbo card options elsewhere, saying the contrast and spacing here is simply easier on the eyes than most alternatives. Number 2. The reading glasses display. She said this rack gets picked over constantly, with shoppers trying on several pairs before settling on the right strength, and multiple pairs often go into the same cart at once. At $1.25 each, buying several strengths or several backups is realistic. In a way, it simply isn't at a $20 pharmacy price point. She's watched the same customers come back specifically because a pair got lost or sat on, treating the low price as an invitation to stock up rather than agonize over a single expensive pair. According to her, having several pairs scattered around a house genuinely changes daily behavior, since nobody has to hunt down the one good pair before reading mail or a menu. She's watched customers specifically test several strengths right there at the rack before deciding, something she said would feel far more stressful, and rushed at a pharmacy counter with a much higher price tag attached to each pair. Having room to experiment without financial pressure, she noted, genuinely changes how comfortable people feel taking their time to find the right fit. It's a small but real shift in shopping experience, she said, one that makes an ordinary errand feel a little less transactional and a little more like a genuine service. She said that kind of small, patient interaction is exactly what keeps customers coming back to the same store specifically, rather than shopping wherever happens to be closest. Number 3. The foam grip utensil set. This cushioned handle fork and spoon set, at $1.25, comes up constantly in conversations at the register, according to her, specifically from shoppers mentioning a parent or spouse with arthritis or a shakier grip. She said watching a regular customer's face light up after finding this exact set, after searching several stores unsuccessfully, is exactly the kind of moment that sticks with her on the job. She's also noticed the cushioned grip holds up well through repeated dishwasher cycles, which matters for something that's genuinely used at every single meal rather than occasionally. She said it's one of the items she'd recommend without hesitation to anyone caring for a family member, since it's such a low-cost, low-effort way to remove genuine daily discomfort. She's also watched customers grab an extra set specifically to keep in a bag or at a second home, treating it as a small daily comfort worth having in more than one place. It's a modest purchase that quietly removes a genuine source of frustration for anyone who's ever struggled just to eat a meal comfortably. She said it's exactly the kind of item that never comes up in a typical conversation about groceries or household needs, yet quietly matters more than almost anything else on a regular shopping list. Before we get to the rest of her list, she explained the pattern she's noticed most clearly after years behind the register. The items older shoppers return for aren't the trendy seasonal finds or viral social media discoveries. They're the boring, practical tools that quietly solve a specific daily problem. That's the filter driving this entire list. Not what's popular, but what actually gets used. She also mentioned that she can often predict which items are about to sell out just by watching which regulars come through the line together, since word tends to spread through friend groups and community centers faster than any advertisement ever could. A single satisfied customer, she said, often brings back 2 or 3 friends within the same week once they've mentioned a specific find that solved a problem they'd been quietly dealing with. It's a kind of informal, community-driven marketing that no advertising budget could really replicate, built entirely on trust between people who see each other regularly and genuinely want to help one another find something useful. It's the kind of grassroots recommendation system that no marketing team could ever replicate, since it's rooted entirely in real relationships and real lived experience rather than any kind of paid promotion. Number 4, the large print word search books. These oversized word search puzzle books at $1.25 have big, clearly spaced letters that make them genuinely usable without eye strain, unlike the tiny print puzzle books found at most grocery store checkout stands. She mentioned that regulars often buy 2 or 3 at once, treating them as a genuine hobby supply rather than a single impulse purchase, and several have specifically told her it's become part of their daily routine. She's also noticed the paper quality holds up well to pen use without the ink bleeding through to the next page, which matters for anyone working through a book cover to cover. She said several of these books get gifted between friends too. Once one person finds a puzzle they particularly enjoy, they often pass along a copy or mention exactly where to find more. She said the puzzle themes vary widely enough, from nature to history to general trivia, that most customers find at least a couple of books each visit that genuinely match their interests. She said the variety is exactly why regulars keep coming back to check the display rather than settling for whatever's available at a single grocery store checkout stand. It's become such a reliable part of the shelf that she'd genuinely be surprised if the store ever stopped carrying it, given how consistently it moves. Number 5, the insulated travel mug. This spill-resistant mug with a secure lid at $1.25 keeps coffee or tea hot for hours while protecting against the kind of accidental spill that becomes more common with a shakier grip. She specifically pointed out that it's one of the few items on this list that gets bought in multiples regularly, since a lot of customers want one for home and a spare for the car or a doctor's appointment. The lid seal has held up well through regular use without developing the slow drip that cheaper mugs eventually get, which she said matters a lot to anyone carrying it in a bag or purse. She also mentioned that customers specifically appreciate how it fits standard car cup holders without needing to be squeezed in, since a wider premium tumbler often doesn't fit as easily. It's become such a routine part of leaving the house that she said several customers describe it as the one thing they genuinely never forget to grab on their way out the door. That kind of routine reliability, she said, is exactly what makes an inexpensive item feel like a genuine daily essential rather than just another purchase. Simple reliability like that, she said, is worth far more to a regular customer than any flashy feature a pricier alternative might offer instead. Number 6, the magnetic clip-on reading light. This small, battery-powered book light at $1.25 clips directly onto a book or magazine, providing focused light for reading in bed or a dim room without disturbing a sleeping partner. She said it's become something of a word-of-mouth favorite, with customers specifically mentioning a friend recommended it after seeing it in use during a visit. The clip has stayed tight enough to hold securely on thicker paperbacks and thinner magazines alike, without slipping loose halfway through a chapter. She said it's become a particularly popular gift item too, since it's small, inexpensive, and solves a problem almost every avid reader eventually runs into once eyesight starts to change. She's also noticed a few customers using it for crossword puzzles and other close-detailed hobbies beyond just books, which speaks to how versatile a simple, focused light can really be. She's even heard of a few customers clipping it onto a recipe card while cooking, proving just how far a small, well-designed tool can genuinely stretch beyond its original intended use. It's exactly the kind of everyday flexibility that makes an item worth having on hand, whether or not it's actually being used for the specific job it was designed for. Number 7. The Non-Slip Drawer Liner. This textured shelf and drawer liner, at $1.25 per roll, keeps dishes, glasses, and stored items from sliding around every time a drawer or cabinet opens and closes. She mentioned it comes up specifically in conversations about kitchen safety, since a sliding stack of plates is a genuinely common source of minor accidents that most people don't think to prevent until it happens once. The liner also wipes clean easily, and it's held up well to regular moisture from washed dishes without curling up at the edges over time. She specifically recommends it for anyone recently moving into a new place too, since it's such a simple, affordable way to protect both belongings and cabinet surfaces at the same time. It's also easy to trim to fit any size shelf or drawer, which she said makes it far more practical than pre-cut mats that don't always match up correctly. It's the kind of humble item that rarely gets any attention, yet quietly prevents dozens of small annoyances every single week in an active kitchen. It's exactly the kind of unnoticed convenience that only becomes obvious the moment it's missing from a drawer or shelf. Number 8. The Extra Large Button Calculator. This basic calculator with oversized, well-spaced buttons, at $1.25, makes balancing a checkbook or double-checking a bill genuinely manageable without squinting at tiny numbers. She said it's one of the more specific requests she gets, with customers occasionally asking directly whether the store carries a calculator with bigger buttons, which tells her exactly how much this particular detail matters to them. The display screen is also large and high contrast, making numbers easy to read at a glance rather than needing to lean in close to double-check a total. She said it's proven durable enough to last years with regular use, which matters a great deal for something that ends up handling genuinely important monthly budgeting tasks. She's noticed several customers keep one specifically by the phone or the mail pile, treating it as a permanent fixture rather than something tucked away and hunted down when needed. It's exactly the kind of small, unglamorous purchase that quietly earns its place in a home for years without ever needing to be replaced or upgraded. She said calculators like this rarely get restocked in large batches, which is exactly why regulars tend to buy a spare the moment they spot one on the shelf. Number 9. Saving her personal favorite for last, the wind-up alarm clock. This simple mechanical alarm clock, at $1.25, requires no app, no syncing, and no battery replacement schedule to track, just a nightly wind and a reliably loud ring the next morning. She called it the item she'd never bet against, the one that keeps selling steadily, no matter how many digital alternatives crowd the shelves around it, because it simply does the one job it's meant to do, without any fuss or setup required. Several customers have specifically told her they prefer the mechanical ring over a phone alarm, precisely because there's no screen to accidentally silence or app to fumble with half asleep in the morning. It's the item, she said, that comes up most often when a customer specifically wants to talk about it at the register, sharing a small story about why they switched back to it after years of relying on a phone. She said those conversations are often her favorite part of the job, hearing exactly why a specific small item mattered enough for someone to bring it up unprompted at checkout. It's a small window into someone's daily life that a lot of retail jobs don't offer, and she said it's genuinely one of the more rewarding parts of the work. It's a reminder, she added, that even the simplest job on the shelf can carry real meaning for the person actually using it every single morning. That covers all 9 items this cashier has watched become genuine favorites among her regular older customers. And it's easy to see why none of them are flashy or trend-driven. Every single one solves a specific, everyday frustration rather than chasing a passing moment online, which is exactly the kind of insight that only comes from actually watching what people reach for again and again, trip after trip, over a genuinely long stretch of time. What stood out most in talking with her was how quickly and confidently she answered, without needing to think it over or check with anyone else, listing product names as easily as she might rattle off her own home address. These weren't hypothetical recommendations pulled together for the sake of a good story. They were observations built from years of direct, repeated conversations at the register. With the exact people this list is meant to help, day after day, shift after shift, without ever once feeling scripted or rehearsed. If you're shopping for yourself or someone you love, this list is a genuinely solid starting point built on real, repeated customer behavior rather than guesswork. It's also worth striking up a conversation with an employee at your own local store, since every location has its own regulars and its own version of this exact list, shaped by the specific community that shops there. A quick, friendly question at checkout can sometimes turn up an entirely new recommendation nobody's mentioned online before, simply because it hasn't spread beyond that one specific store yet. Employees genuinely notice these patterns more than most shoppers realize, and a lot of them are happy to share what they've seen if someone simply takes the time to ask, which one of these 9 would make the biggest difference in your own routine? Let us know in the comments below, and if a cashier or employee at your own local store has shared something similar, we'd love to hear about it too, since these first-hand observations are exactly what make a list like this genuinely useful, rather than just another generic roundup pieced together without any real first-hand knowledge behind it. If you found this list useful, make sure you're subscribed, because we bring you insider perspectives like this regularly, straight from the people who see these purchases happen every single day, week after week, long before any of it ever makes it online. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.